Hey, I'm Lana from Lana Glowshot Art, and in this video, we'll be unboxing the April 2024 Sketchbox. This box is all about Pan Pastels, and we're gonna unpack a bunch of blending and layering techniques as we explore this super exciting media. Ready? Let's go. The surface in this month's box is the Art Spectrum Color Fix paper in deep black. This paper is specially formulated to work with pastels and allows you to build up tons and tons of layers. It also works beautifully with colored pencil. Let's get started with the custom Pan Pastel set, which includes magenta, violet, and the burnt sienna tint. And at the bottom, you have a few soft tool sponges to apply these colors. Using one of the short edges on the triangular shaped sponge, I'm going to start dipping the sponge into the Pan Pastel and then applying it in light layers on the Color Fix paper. I can work my sponge in a variety of different directions and build up as much opacity as I would like. If you want to build up a bright color, make sure that you are utilizing layering and try out the edge of the sponge to create a couple straight edges. I can turn my sponge and find a new clean edge to swatch the violet on my Color Fix paper. But now both short edges are used up. I have a couple options here. I can wash my sponge in soapy water and let it dry, or I can wipe it off on a piece of paper towel until it wipes relatively clean and then dip it right into the next color. Look, there's no trace of violet here at all as I swipe the burnt sienna tint. Now I'm going to switch my sponge to the medium edge and I'm going to load half of it up with magenta and the other half with burnt sienna tint. I might have to do this a couple times to really get the right amount, but then I will swipe it over and over again on my paper. And if I nudge it just a little bit up and a little bit down each time, I'll be able to create a really nice, smooth, even gradient. I can also use this little applicator wand that looks kind of like a makeup brush to create some really beautiful textures. Try out these sponges and see how many different marks you can make. The prompt this month is Twilight, and I want to show you how to use the violet to create a gradient that can look like a beautiful night sky. Use more concentrated pigment towards the horizon line and then allow it to diffuse as it moves up and away from the horizon line towards a black sky. You can add a little bit of the burnt sienna tint towards the bottom to lighten that up just a little bit more, and you can use pressure on your sponge but less pigment to get that really beautiful gradient as the violet transitions to black. Next up, we have two Gold Faber colored pencils in beige red and fuchsia. Although the beige red is light in value, it stays right on top of the surface of this Color Fix paper, and that's all because of this special texture. You can layer colored pencils over and over and over again on this paper, and you can also layer your colored pencils right over pastel. I'm going to show you a couple different techniques that you can use with your materials by creating a hot air balloon night scene. Let's get started by sketching a circle with your fuchsia colored pencil. And then I'll turn this circle into a hot air balloon by extending it and tapering it towards the bottom. I'd love a nice little mountain range here, and so I'm sketching that along with a couple details for the hot air balloon before I apply any Pan Pastel. Using that triangle wedge-shaped sponge, I am going to apply a gradient in the background, obviously avoiding the hot air balloon. And I really like this triangular sponge for this because I can tip it up on its edge to really work around the contours of the hot air balloon. It's surprising how detailed you can get with such a large tool. I also like putting in large areas with my larger tools because the rough paper can chew up your sponges, but these larger sponges are a lot more durable. So I definitely lean into them for larger coverage and then switch over to my smaller tools for more detailed work. This Soft Tools applicator with replacement heads is great for the detail work, and you can use the replacement heads as they wear out, rubbing against the textured surface. I'm going to use this tool to apply magenta to the top of the hot air balloon, and I'm paying really close attention to the edges of the balloon. If my violet gradient background moved into the hot air balloon, it's no big deal. Pan Pastels can layer opaquely right over another color, so I'll just draw right over the top. I'm also reserving some of of the black in between these panels of the hot air balloon so that I can create more depth and dimension. When you're working on dark paper, you always need to reserve your darks, which is kind of opposite what we're used to because most of the time we work on light paper and we draw our darks and reserve our lights. As you layer the Pan Pastels, drag it smoothly over the surface of the hot air balloon, tapering it towards the bottom. You can make the entire hot air balloon magenta, or you can do what I did and begin to add the magenta to the burnt sienna tint for more variety and for a pattern at the tapered edge of the balloon. I eventually applied straight burnt sienna tint to the base of the hot air balloon and to represent the flame that's lifting the balloon up and away from the earth. Once I had a solid lay-in with Pan Pastels, I switched back to my colored pencils. Here I'm using the fuchsia to add some details to my hot air balloon, and I'm also cleaning up some of the edges. This fuchsia colored pencil is really close to the magenta Pan Pastel, so I can use it to clean up any rough edges at the top. Using the beige red, I added a few stars in the background, and now this little study is complete. Now I'm going to show you how to use all these materials together to create a drawing of a stuffed animal. You can grab a stuffed animal that you find around your house, you can use a photo reference, or you can create this out of your imagination. You want to begin with a sketch that builds off of basic shapes. Think circle for the head, circle for the body, and elongated ovals for the arms and legs. I'm drawing a fuzzy little triceratops, so I also added the frill and the 3 horns. Now I'm using the diamond-shaped sponge to apply violet. If you're working out of your imagination or you're changing the colors from your reference quite a bit, it's important to take a moment and conceptualize what's going on with the form. I am imagining an overhead light source with the light coming down and hitting the top part of the stuffed animal with more intensity. And then as the form rounds away from the light source, it's going to be darker. So the bottom of the sphere that I'm using for my stuffed animal's head is going to be darker than the top of the sphere. As I map in this textured fur, I am leaving more black towards the bottom of each of these shapes so that I have a really clear shadow area and that I don't have to go back later and remove this pastel to find the black of the paper again. I'm going to be applying some lighter value colors to the top of the head and the arms, but before I do that, I'm going to lay the frill in magenta. I'm using magenta as a base color, but anywhere that I want that color to be a little bit lighter and anywhere that I'm imagining it's going to receive more light, I'm adding a little bit of burnt sienna tint so that I have some variety and dimension in the frill. Now with my smaller applicator wand, I'm mixing the violet and the burnt sienna tint to create a nice light lavender color. And I'm applying this mixed color in small, even strokes to create the texture of the fur. I want this to be a fast, quick application. So the wand is going do, 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 do in lots of different directions to build up a dense texture. This lavender is going to be lightest on the top of my 3-dimensional shapes. So in the head, it's lightest at the top, and then it gets progressively darker. So I'm mixing less and less burnt sienna tint into the violet as I progress towards the bottom of the sphere of the head. I use this exact same approach in the arms, with the top of the arms being lighter and the bottom of the arms being darker. One of the best things about Pan Pastels is that you don't have to have everything perfect in one pass. You can continue to layer, and we're going to layer even more with our colored pencils. In the January 2024 box, I showed you how to use a combination of pastel and colored pencils to create really realistic fur. This would be a super helpful resource as you continue to layer your colored pencils over your pastel and to create that really convincing texture. When I render fur, I like to work from dark to light. So after I laid in all of that fur texture with my fuchsia colored pencil, I switched over to my beige red, and then I really started to heighten and intensify the fur with this lighter value. I use this pencil for finishing touches, but if there are any issues with this final texture, I can always come back over the top with more pastel or with my other colored pencil. Keep in mind that the top of your head, your arms, and your feet are all going to be lighter than the bottom side. So as you build up more and more texture with your lightest colored pencil, make sure that that is more concentrated on the top than on the bottom of the form. And now this piece is complete. I hope you learned a ton about applying and blending pan pastels in this video, and we can't wait to see what you create. So be sure to use the hashtag SketchboxApril when you post your work online. For more unboxing videos and tutorials, you can check out our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.